Hello and welcome, and we're at Holistic Investments, and I'm your host, Konstantin Kogan. And today we have a special guest who's a co-founder of LinkedIn and also co-founder of Hop Protocol, Eric Lee. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Konstantin. Great to be with you today.
Yeah, this is an honor. Like, seriously, you have such an amazing story to tell, and we're going to get to it, really shortly. Traditionally, I have to read the disclaimer just in case. So this content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. So we can start. So I try to structure it as much as possible because I want to make sure that people go quickly with your journey. So there's one iconic moment in your history which I want to start from, if you don't mind. So, and it is related to one of the early companies that you've been part of, and actually this company was so impressive, even though it ended up as we know now, almost like a failure, so to speak, although I don't consider it a failure. But we're talking about General Magic, which was in 1994. I think you were there, like in 1995, and it had like incredible vision, and Netflix series actually filmed a documentary about it. So can you talk a little bit about the start of your career when you were still in Sun Microsystems and General Magic?
Yeah, sure, Konstantin. I mean, thanks for asking me about that experience. Not a lot of people do, so it's a really fascinating experience to share. I mean, General Magic was a company that was started by some former Apple people before Steve Jobs returned to Apple, for the infamous second life of Apple. And I guess the way it started was there were kind of like two factions of Apple, who wanted to build, what is now the smartphone, but at the time was called the, Personal Digital Assistant, the PDA. There was the Newton folks, and then there was, this other, faction that had some other ideas. Actually, many ways the precursor of the internet, because what General Magic was working on was this connected device that was connected to all these different services, like e-commerce and information destinations, the information superhighway, as it was. And it had an amazing, team. Again, the kind of founders were, from Apple, and they had many of the members of the original Mac team that were founders of General Magic. And it was just, in the early 90s, really, the place to be. So sort of like, these days, if you wanted to be, part of a, hot startup, I don't want to mention anyone in particular for offending, a company that I didn't mention, but it was, really the kind of the hot company to be at, because there was such amazing people and they were working on such a, tremendous vision. What was really exciting about General Magic was, really all of the really successful entrepreneurs that came out of, General Magic. So, for example, the, founder of eBay, was at one time from General Magic. There were others who, started, the early days of internet TV. From General Magic, and maybe the most famous of all was the, father of the iPod, as they say, Tony Fadell, who was at one time on the General Magic team as well. So
it was a dream team, basically.
It was an amazing place, and I learned so much, from there in terms of, just really the excellence that's required to, create, great technology. And just the standards, for that, and amazing people, all around.
Yeah, no. So that's probably like I really implore people to take a look at the documentary, because it actually transferred this story incredibly. That sometimes even you have a dream team, if you have a vision, and you can be unlucky as well, and you can be lost in certain estimations. And it's still, I think, anyone who's really went to entrepreneurship, like, they would respect all the folks who made this risk and, like, actually had a tremendous careers, as you mentioned, in Apple, and like even some people came out of there and created their own companies, and eventually this is an exceptional experience. So I think that there were a lot of other companies that shaped you as you are right now, but I cannot admit like the company, one of the biggest social media in the world, LinkedIn. So you were like one of the founding team members, and you were a CTO for LinkedIn for quite a while. So can you talk a little bit about this particular experience? So how did you get to this team, and maybe talk about a little bit some about the architecture of one of the biggest social media?
Yeah, sure. The story really began, on the basis of a personal relationship that I had with one of the other co-founders, Reid Hoffman. Mm-hmm. When we were at university together, and it was in a way, looking back, one of the very typical stories where you meet people that you will work with at school, and eventually go on to do something. And we, so I knew Reid. And the other co-founders, many of them were also from Stanford. And, Reid and I were sort of early entrepreneurs, prior to LinkedIn. We would often get together for dinner and share our mainly war stories about all the problems that we were having with our respective startups at the time. But we really, built a bond, and we also shared a passion for entrepreneurship and startups. And we talked, often how, one day we would start do something together. And, the circumstances were, really just, right at the time. LinkedIn was one of these companies that actually got started during a bust cycle where the internet bubble had just burst. Mm-hmm. Hardly anyone believed there was a future in the internet, which is sort of surprising to believe right now, but was actually the case at that time. I mean, investors would, we like to joke, go play at golf courses rather than, go talk to, startups. And but so we had a very, sort of modest idea. There was basically a group of us who said, this internet thing isn't really all bad. All the failures that came with .com, boom. It didn't have to be. So we had this idea around LinkedIn, which was keeping track of our networks, because in Silicon Valley, people move from job to job relatively quickly, and so you never really know where your contacts are. And so we built this platform as a way, really, for ourselves to figure out where the people in our networks were. What companies they had maybe moved to, or maybe they had been at a company, and their vesting was up, and it was time to persuade them to join a venture of your own. And so that was really the idea for LinkedIn, and we thought that really building this kind of professional graph where people could not only keep track of their networks, but could connect to other people whom they might not know but want to be connected with, could use a platform for introductions and to reach people that had opportunities for them. And it turned out that a lot of people felt the same way and had a similar interest, and so we're very fortunate that LinkedIn became as successful as it did.
Yeah, I mean, today it's number one business social network. A lot of people complain that like Facebook is a lot of spam there. Like, TikTok is for only like typically more younger audience, and Instagram same is like not functional for a lot of business unless you're just selling something, but not like networking. So, and LinkedIn is kind of this perfect middle where where you actually have a combination of the social media we actually like or business oriented. So I'm after like a recent acquisition by Microsoft, like they're looking to have what almost 1 billion users so pretty soon. So that's impressive. And now to kind of, I mean, this topic is so like vast, so we can talk about it, I guess, as a separate show. But I want to jump to other, like I would say now, your current focus, which is Hub project, which a human trust protocol is an acronym, right? And the idea of Hub, you will explain better, but the way I understood it is to build trust using the blockchain technology and to build a new level of reputation where people, they will not only trust you online, just based on your avatar, based on the description and the information you're putting in, but you're also you will have an opportunity to win their trust and build this reputation. So obviously this is just a very simplified version of the project. So I wanted to tell more about Hub project.
Yeah, you explained it well, Konstantin. And the origins of Hub really, in many ways, originated with LinkedIn. When I left LinkedIn, which was, several years ago, I really thought that, it was done, social networks, professional networks, largely completed by these successful companies that existed. As I looked into it more deeply, I began to see that maybe there were, some cracks in the armor and some opportunities to, improve on things. One of the things that I realized from my own experience from LinkedIn was that, this is a platform, LinkedIn, I mean, that is really trying to mediate trust between people. If I'm a recruiter on LinkedIn, which is one of the major use cases on the platform, we're trying to hire somebody, I really want to try to find the right candidate for a position that I'm trying to fill. And that's really an exercise in trust, right? Out of all the candidates, who I'm interviewing, who's the one, who I can have the most, trust in that would be appropriate for this position. We're trying to learn, about that person or those people, and get them through the, interview process. If I'm doing a, partnership with someone, how can I get to know them and know that they're going to be a good partner with me in my, business deal. So a lot of the, interactions and purpose for LinkedIn really kind of came down to this idea of establishing trust. And that's when I realized that, there were more opportunities to do better than these existing platforms. And sort of the form of the, problem was, I, as a user, I want to trust other people who I don't know. I want to meet them. And I want to establish trust to be able to do something. But how do I know that the information that I'm getting from them about them, their profiles, is actually, in fact, who they say they are? And the fact is, I don't know. But I'm relying on this information nonetheless, right? And the reason I don't know that this information is trustworthy is because people enter the information on their own. They write about their backgrounds. They write about, where they've gone to school, what jobs they've had, what they're expert in, that sort of thing. And in doing so, people, they tend to sort of exaggerate and not always be truthful. They want to paint a pretty picture about their background, and so I think that's where the kind of the problem is where, if I'm depending on this information to get to know somebody, how do I know that that's true? And so we thought that really, in a way, blockchain was just really a great way to attack some of these problems in terms of, getting closer to truth that can be verified, which, I think is one of the fundamental tenets of blockchain, in terms of this immutability aspect of information. And then secondly, I believe that reputation is actually one of the most valuable kinds of data that people have about themselves. if people have a great reputation, they really benefit from that. They get access to new jobs, they get new access to new projects and opportunities. And so reputation is something that is really important to own. And so we came to this other concept that I think is also very relevant for blockchain, which is this idea of portability of the reputation. So we want, to build kind of a new kind of reputation, for people that is both verified as well as portable. And, basically that's in a nutshell what the, Hub project is about.
Mm-hmm. So before we go deeper into this, so like I'm going to try to take a position of devil's advocate, right? Because I love this topic so much, and I've researched it on different layers. On the sociological and ontological level, on obviously from the blockchain perspectives. I was actually once building a platform for financial advisors who were trying to do very similar concept, like just from a different, I would say, perspective looking at it, but also trying to build reputation. How can you verify that financial advisor is who he is, like, his licenses across the world he has, and to unite this into one marketplace? And not to go deeper into this conversation, but we failed, and I know now why. So I want to ask you first, like, why, what's the premise? Like, what's the criteria, how you even evaluate, like, whether a person is trustworthy or not, before we get into token model and before we get to other important topics? Because the Internet of Value right now, that's the protocol that you're introducing, the technological aspects are brilliant. And I'm sure we can talk about it, and they're amazing right now, what you can do. And I love in the white paper, which I actually suggest people to take a look at it. It's a 41 page, incredibly well written, and actually Rich Miller and Mika Matsumura, I know them all as well, like, they're, great colleagues of yours. And the opening line is brilliant. The currency of the new economy is trust, by Rachel Botsman, by the way, the famous author. But again, the concept of trust is so deep on many levels. So I just want you to help us to understand, how do you even digitize trust?
Yeah, that's a great question, Konstantin. And I know I'm speaking to an expert in you, so I have to, answer carefully and hopefully intelligently. It's a deep, concept, right? Trust. And so we don't pretend that we're going to, be the, project that, solves it once and for all. I don't know if it ever, can be solved, but I do believe that we can get closer to enabling people, to present, good versions of themselves, and to, move the, state of the art, further. And one of our advisors, Josh Hillman, once told us that if you can even, incrementally solve this, and make it a little bit better, the dividends, for the users are going to be, so significant. And I really believe that, as well. But okay, so what are we doing? First of all, we believe that, we want people to make their own decisions about, other people in terms of whether they are trustworthy. So the first thing that we're going to do is to just mainly make sure that, when people disclose information about themselves, that others who look at that information can know that it is, true to a large degree. And that's where this kind of verified idea, comes in. We don't want people to merely enter information about themselves. We want other parties to verify that information. So a very simple example is, if I've gone to a certain school, of course I can put that into my profile on LinkedIn, but it would be even better if the school said, I actually went there, and provide the verification, right? There's been very famous cases of people who have, sort of fabricated their education experience just to, qualify for certain jobs. They've been, found out, and, they've had to resign, from those jobs. There was a very famous case, a few years ago involving the Yahoo CEO who, claimed that he got a computer science degree. In fact, someone ultimately checked the school and just found out that, he went there and had enrolled in the program, but never finished the degree. So and that those are just the reported cases. That happens many times over with the cases.
By the way, if I may pause it for a second, this is like kind of a very controversial thing, because if he's a good CEO and he actually he made it, he became a CEO of one of the major corporations without even completing the education, it's almost like this question: does it even matter, right? So I mean, I understand that generally misrepresent anything, like it's not a good ethical trait by no means, but the question, if the school approves you, and showcase that, okay, you're a graduate from Stanford or from Harvard, from Yale, and what if not? Then what happens to a person that, for example, a dropout? I mean, it is visible. What if the person does not even want to talk about it, and you, as my classmate, have an ability to go to the Hub network and actually input this data, saying that, what, Konstantin actually, he didn't finish this course. So you see, this is also like a tricky angle, so how
I do see what you're saying. And again, we don't try to be the be all and end all of trust, because, as you said, it's a really complex, concept, based on how, people, make decisions. What we say is, look, how people choose to make decisions about, who they hire or who they, trust. Those are things that, is really left up to them. Whether somebody should have a, computer science degree to have a certain job, or they don't need to have a, such a degree to have a job. It's not really for us to decide. That's where this sort of, human judgment still, really matters. What we hope that we can do is we can provide the information that is accurate, that allows those decision makers to make the best decision that they can. And clearly, if we can put, good information, reliable information, verified information in front of the decision makers, it's going to help them a lot in making, better decisions, which is what we hope them and everyone else who needs to decide whether should they hire a plumber, is that plumber reliable, are they going to fix it and not have problems, or if they're going to hire a teacher, in all different professions, everyone is trying to make a decision about whether they're going to trust somebody. And if we can provide the accurate information for them to aid them in their decision making, then we would have done a lot to advance the cause of trust.
100%. No, and I really support it. I'm just trying to get into deeper levels of understanding. So as I assume right now, did you connect to how many universities already support this program? If I want to verify, in the, just let's say even in the United States.
Well, all the universities in the United States support it to some degree. Unfortunately, it's not on the blockchain yet, so that's an area that we're very interested in and working to try to move them over to the blockchain. But they do provide some verifications. It's not especially efficient, and there is every reason to believe that if you could make this process more efficient, that people will actually decision makers, let's call them that, employers will benefit from greater efficiency as well. So in the rest of the world, the process of verifying even education credentials is more challenging. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is paper based. A lot of it you have to call the school and find somebody who can look through some records and tell you whether the name shows up on a particular register. It's very inefficient, right? And so it is in a world that is moving faster and faster, and decision making needs to go faster and faster. That's where this kind of technology, especially around blockchain, is really going to be super helpful, because again, once we've got the facts recorded, it can't be tampered with, and you can just pull that information from the blockchain and know that it's accurate, and you can depend on that information.
So if I may throw another curveball, I apologize, but I just have to. So the other flip side of this technology, and we had this multiple conferences, it's immutable ledger, and yes, you cannot be tampered, and the information you're inputting, this is on the blockchain, and it's amazing. But the problem is if you input wrong information, let's imagine you call some university, I will use my native country, Ukraine, and you can still negotiate with some people that the information will be input in the way they prefer to. And plus the evaluation of the credentials is also a tricky part because it's not going to be the same as in the US standards. But set aside this, imagine you just evaluate somebody has master's or whatever, or somebody has some other form of education and it's wrong. And it's already on the blockchain, so you cannot even change this information. So how do you deal with this particular instance?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts there. I mean, first of all, there should be the possibility to update or change the information if it's found out that it's incorrect, right? The source of the information is very important. If the source of the information, such as a educational institution, it is assumed to be trustworthy, is the source of the information, then you would assume that the information is also, correct. If it comes from, your uncle, for example, Constantine, that you went to a certain school, then maybe there should be some suspicion about whether,
unless he's a dean in the school.
Unless he's a dean, and he's operating in his official capacity. You're absolutely correct. So that's some thoughts. I mean, another thought also is that the quantity of information is also very valuable, and so we have this concept in our project of a trust score, where basically is the aggregate of a lot of different pieces of information that tells you, hey, on the whole, this person, maybe they had some bumps along the way, but on the whole, he's a trustworthy person because of these other things that he did since then, such as, being CEO of a major corporation. He's an okay person. That's, helpful as well. So we want to not only be, the place where, the basic facts about an individual's identity is stored. We also want to help, kind of create these kind of scoring mechanisms that help summarize that information so that people can, more quickly, benefit from this data.
So, if I may specify, in this scoring system, which is very interesting, how many different parameters are you taking into account?
Well, it's really arbitrary. I mean, I think the first step of the project, which is already a major step, is just to gather all this information, in the first place by just developing the richness of the information and increasing it, as much as possible, is already, valuable, very valuable in itself. The key again is not to just have merely lots of information; it's to have lots of verified information about people. So that's the first part. Okay. And then on top of that, then you can actually, calculate, reliability, trust score on top of that information. And then frankly, decision makers differ in the things that matter to them. Like you were saying, it might be really important that, I have a computer science degree to qualify for this job. Somebody else who's, making that decision might not care whether I have a degree, or not. Maybe they want to, be interested in the college dropout because, there are some very successful college dropouts, as well. So everybody is making decisions, using different criteria. And so we want to leave, that criteria up to those decision makers and help them, make up their, minds by providing the basic information. And so that also implies that there isn't just one sort of trust score. There's actually, an arbitrary, infinite, kinds of trust scores. It just depends on, how the decision maker, is evaluating the trustworthiness, basically, of those individuals.
So maybe, Eric, if you can help me to understand better, like in the audience, like let's take a practical example. If I were to digitize my reputation on your platform, so how would the process go? Who would you ask whether I'm a trustworthy colleague, friend, or like I was a good student or not? Like, so how would it start?
Well, just like on a LinkedIn profile, there's so many different aspects of who you are, right? The jobs that you've had, the schools that you've gone to, various skill sets, that you have, interests that you have. Those are all things that can form your profile. And so, for the things that are, sort of easy to verify, right, by, going to the institutions that you've been at, or going to the companies that have records that you've been there because they've paid you, between this time and that time you were obviously employed. We can check those facts and essentially assign kind of like a blue check mark next to those entries in your profile and say, you know what, these things are confirmed for Konstantin.
So one example that pops in my mind immediately, for example, if I run my own company and I am the founder of the company and the only founder, I don't have even co-founders. So the only person who can verify that I work there is me. So how can we deal with this situation?
Yeah, great question. Well, so there are other kinds of facts that are harder to verify because the sources of that information is more difficult to access, or maybe there aren't very many sort of independent sources. And so in those cases, what we do is we really are looking at the behaviors of that individual, as a way to prove that a certain fact is true about them. So if you worked, if you're a founder of a company, maybe you blog from your company, blog on your company's blog. Maybe you attend a lot of conferences where you're talking about your company and what it's doing, that sort of thing. All those things are verifiable facts that are associated with your position as a founder of this company. Mm-hmm. So it's not a direct proof, but it lends a lot of evidence, right? We can collect these sort of facts that kind of build up. And again, going back to this idea of the trust score, we can kind of build functions into that trust score that say, okay, we're not completely sure that Konstantin started this company, but based on all this evidence, which each of them are verified, there's a high chance that he probably is the founder of this company.
Mm-hmm. So based on public records, yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and we're looking at the actions of people. That's the important thing. We don't want people to only enter this information in about themselves, because that's where there's the possibility that people could enter falsified information about mm-hmm. themselves. So we're looking at sort of external factors that prove something about their status or their identity.
So you would probably analyze some people who are associated to this company, like colleagues or some partners or some people who maybe mention this company, right? So all of the other data sets that then they constitute some kind of like sort of a semantic web, that how you analyze, with artificial intelligence and different like tools, right? And then you make a scoring system that allows people to actually, like, again, not 100% verify it, but at least give the probability of trustworthiness.
That's right. Because you see today, even though these decisions are being made, the foundation of this information is not even, completely solid, because the facts that are there are mainly not verified. They're mainly people putting in information about themselves. So if we can solve that, then that will actually lend more strength to kind of the next level of analysis that people are making based on this information. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's it. And you can tell there's lots of work. There's lots of work ahead, to not only, capture this information, but to, help people, decision makers, companies, easily analyze this information. And, technology is great for that, whether it's AI or, data science. All those are tractable problems. So we're starting at kind of a, more fundamental level to make sure that the source data is, really good, so that, it's not, garbage in, garbage out kind of a situation.
Yeah. So let me ask you, okay, so I mean, we definitely can talk about the theoretical part. Let's talk about the practicality. So people right now, whoever subscribed to the platform, so can you talk a little bit about the status? Like, is the mainnet, is this open? Like, so when can people actually use the Human Trust Protocol?
Yeah, so we released a DApp back in April of 2019, and it's been growing and growing, and it's really a community platform that allows people to sort of join. This is a very rough analogy, sort of a decentralized LinkedIn, where they can participate in activities and engage with each other. And what we're doing there is, first of all, we're trying to create something useful for people, where they can connect with industry peers and have meaningful engagement. But what we're doing is we're helping them to develop profiles about themselves around what kinds of activities they're interested in, what kinds of activities they're participating in, and really kind of building up this profile based on behaviors, based on actions that they're doing. And the goal of that is to start to collect these facts and develop this kind of reputation that people can take in a portable way, not only use on our platform, but also use on other platforms like marketplaces and things like that as well. So that's one of the companies that is really built on this blockchain. The other company is a company that is actually just in the business of running background checks and helping people run background checks. So in the US, for example, almost all employers employ some kind of background checks when they hire people. And background checks, that's just a fancy term for verifying the backgrounds of people, making sure that they, went to a certain school, they went to, they worked at a certain place, they are...
No criminal records.
They have no criminal records, exactly. If they're driving, for example, in a gig economy company, their driving record is clear, that sort of thing. And so the background check company is explicitly trying to verify facts about people on behalf of companies that are hiring. And, our goal is that, we're going to be putting this information onto the blockchain and making it available for those users so that they can reuse those facts that are now verified about them for future jobs and opportunities.
That's interesting. So for that, you need a critical mass of people, right? So are you looking to integrate with other platforms and provide, because it's peer-to-peer network, and I assume as the base layer, you can easily help other applications to be on top of your trust protocol, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's lots of opportunities, to integrate, and we're looking for those opportunities where there's a motivation, to want to use this information. So in the case of the background check company, employers need to run background checks. So there's a need to verify this information. So we could actually be integrated into applicant tracking systems. We could be integrated into labor marketplaces where people are finding jobs and trying to get hired and need to run background checks. Those are great places to partner with to get the critical mass of users to kind of build their profile on blockchain. And one of the things that we found over on the community platform is that people love going to events, and this year in particular, they've attended a lot of virtual events, and so we're able to help them develop a profile where they can use that as a way to network with other people and see a profile of other people that they're meeting and sort of the interests that they have in events that they've gone to in the past to sort of gauge, the shared interests and, maybe they've gone to the same events too that, gives them a starting point to break the ice and, get to know the other person.
So how many users do you have right now, if I may ask?
We have tens of thousands right now. And, it's been, it's always hard to grow kind of a network effect, type of business. But we've seen some, really great exponential growth this year on the platform. And, that's, very going to give us a really great opportunity to grow even, more into next year. So we're really excited about the opportunity for next year because we're definitely seeing network effects happening, and we're going to be able to do even better next year in terms of getting to even higher numbers.
Yeah, and I'm sure you will, because it's great, and I think let's also talk about the other, I would say, incentive models, because you have a token, like a even dual model, a token model. So can you help people to understand, why do you need a token and how does it work?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to explain it as simple as possible because I don't want to take up the remainder of this session to explain it. But one of the core ideas around the token is that we want to provide incentives for people to be trustworthy. So there's this idea around staking, where when someone gets into an interaction with somebody else, they're basically kind of staking their trust. So we call that trust stake. Not too fancy. And the idea is that they're putting something at risk, these tokens, for in the name of trustworthy interaction with the other party. And if everybody has a successful transaction, they get their stake back plus some reward, and that gives them an incentive to be trustworthy in case there are any problems in the interaction or transaction. They try to work it out, to earn the stake.
So just to clarify, just let's go back a little bit, how do I even get the initial coins, right? So do I have to register and I get a bonus, or an airdrop, or do I have to acquire them, or do you have to make some actions to generate them? So let's just start from zero,
Yeah. Well, first of all, we want to get this going. So, we are, giving people some of these tokens to, start with. And, we just, give it to them and hopefully they will, earn more through the platform. Eventually, we won't be as generous in terms of awarding these tokens, and people will, have to, purchase them from, other holders in order to, use them in this sort of marketplace of interactions. So that's the, idea. And the goal is that as they earn more and more of these tokens, they can do some other things with them. So one of the things that they can do is actually participate in sort of higher, value or, higher staked types of interactions. So, maybe if you're bidding on a, $1 million project, the required stake that is needed in this kind of transaction could be much higher than if you were, trying to, do a website design for someone that might, not cost $1 million. So having more tokens at your disposal allows you to gain access to greater opportunities in these marketplaces, and that's one of the concepts around the project. The other concept essentially is that you can this token becomes valuable in itself for trading products and services on the platforms itself. So even today, you can use these tokens to, for example, attend events. This is a community platform, so there's a lot of events that are going on. So rather than paying fiat for attending this event, you can, if you have extra tokens, you can just pay for these events using the tokens, and there will be even organizers who want to collect these tokens, in exchange for letting you into the event. So it's starting to work. And we want to see more and more examples of all these different kinds of interactions.
So how many tokens do I get as a person who like first time I register the platform?
We'll give you $50 in tokens.
How many tokens is that?
So right now it's actually 50 because we have in this 2 token system we have a stable coin token that is
Like 1 to 1 to dollar. Yeah.
Yeah. So we give you 50 of those, and away you go. You can do whatever you want.
Okay, so now let's do some practical assignments. So we make a bet with you, right? So the next time let's imagine we have the bet is that whether we're going to have a second interview or not. So I put 50 tokens that we will have, and you might bet that 50 tokens maybe that we will not. So what's going to happen once we stake on the platform something, and how is it distributed? Like who makes the decision that whatever you're pledging to do is actually happening and you're getting the reward?
Well, both sides of an interaction, there could be multi-party interactions as well. But let's say, in the simplest case, there's just 2 people, who are interacting. We are participants in this decision-making process as well. So if we have a successful, interaction, we can say, hey, we're both happy, and we're good to go. So we get our stake back, plus a bit of reward. I'll talk about malicious users. We can talk about that if you want, but the white paper deals with that as well. But let's say that in the case only one of us is happy. You have a problem with me. I didn't. I sucked at answering your questions, so did not give a successful interview. So what we talk about is that we rely on community members who essentially can serve as arbitrators to come look at the situation, basically be an objective third party, and make a decision about who was right, and so they can essentially push the stake to the kind of the winning party, or they can do anything in between. To sort of balance out the the award of the stake to the appropriate individual.
Yeah. So first of all, this is a great interview. So I just want to make sure. Yeah. And secondly, in terms of who's paying the reward, so there's the bank is basically the pool of funds, the hub token that is accumulated, and then it's being paid from this particular pool, right? So it's already initially in the design of the entire decentralized system, of paying out those rewards, right?
That's right. And then who's paying the arbiters, right? There's sort of a network fee idea where there's a little commission for using the network, and that goes to fund people like arbiters who get compensated for performing their tasks as sort of experts in the community.
And not to go deeply technological, but we're talking about, I assume it's a proof of stake, right? In mob model. I mean, you call it. I remember, and it's a proof of trust, right?
Yeah, that's a big word for us. So we like to use the word trust pretty often. I mean, there is also a reputation sort of attached to these arbitrators as well. So if they are sort of arbitrating fairly, hopefully again they get more opportunities. But if they're not really acting fairly in a marketplace, then maybe they have less opportunities.
No, that's incredible. Again, not to go really deep into tokenomics, because we can talk about it I think for more than an hour easily. There is an incentive model, there is an explanation clear in the white paper. So please take a look at it. And there is different examples of usage of by the users and how to run a node, how the stake rewards they work, and basically how the evaluation works. So we're just going through nitty-gritty details if you don't like to read a lot in detail. So we're just trying to put it in more simplified language for you. But let's talk about the taxonomy of the tasks of different opportunities, right? And as you mentioned, some of the dishonest raters and like, this dynamics between the people who are trying to basically like fool the bank.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In any kind of reputation system, there's definitely the potential for malicious users to game the system, to support their friends when they're not supposed to, and sort of providing again falsified reputation. And so we have some ideas for how to identify malicious users and to further identify sort of networks of those, because they tend to collude with others. And so once we identify those malicious users, we sort of flag them and disable them from the system, and that's sort of known to the other members of the community as well. It is, I would say, an ongoing problem, because there's been no perfect solution to that. But the idea is to again really try to minimize that, so that by and large the facts that are known are verified, and just to get a little bit closer to more verified information, so that people can make better decisions and essentially create trust with each other.
Yeah, and I guess if there is like at least a, like improvement in whatever, it's hard to even quantify, but even if it's in like small percentage, if people will start trusting and it'll be easier to verify each other, that's already a huge achievement. And not to say anything wrong about LinkedIn, which is also your baby as well, but there are a number of people who actually now create fake LinkedIn accounts, and they try to ask for money. Like, my friend just recently posted, he was asked for like send him few Bitcoins, like just to support, the poor family in Nigeria. Again, I understand people are desperate and they're trying to be creative, but I assume from thousands people, one might actually fall for it. So, and there's no way to, even in such a brilliant platform and such a like huge enterprise level, like with all the money in the world, with all the opportunities to cybersecurity, because there's a human factor. Like even there, like it's just impossible to create a bulletproof solution. It's kind of the system actually is hoping that you have enough critical thinking to analyze the situation on your own. So and I guess the same falls for you, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, part of the purpose of the platform is to prevent fraud, and especially with regard to financial services, reducing fraud, mitigating fraud is a huge area for financial institutions. I mean, they spend growing amounts of money, billions of dollars every year that are growing to do things like KYC and reduce incidents of fraud in their networks. Because when money is involved, people's motivations become questionable sometimes. So this protocol really fits into that, and we actually have been working on some DeFi ideas, which has been hot the last few months, to really directly apply what we're doing into the DeFi area as well. But we also believe that there's a positive side of reputation as well, which is that the people who do have great reputations do tend to get access to greater opportunities. I mean, you have sites on e-commerce. That's the clearest, simplest example of this, where when something is rated well, people want to buy it, as opposed to products for which there are very few ratings. It becomes kind of questionable, and it's the same thing with people and the way that we interact with each other. So we're trying to bring a little bit of more quantification to that, and surface people who really truly believe deserve opportunity for themselves.
Oh no, for sure. And I think it's such an important task and such a complex task, like to create certain like reliable vector, or so to speak, like, index of one person, of ability to deliver trustworthy information, any information, right? And just to make sure that it's true. That's a huge problem you're solving. And once you're going to solve it to all the levels that you're hoping to solve it, I'm sure this is going to be one of the most disruptive technologies that we potentially have, because it is challenging just because of human beings. We tend to mess up the best technologies, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I think the ideal is brilliant, and again, I even though how skeptical and critical I can be in certain elements of this, just because I know that we as human beings will try to break anything possible, so. But in recruiting business, I think it's huge market opportunity just for a recruiter, especially from another country, to make sure that the person is trustworthy, whether you're hiring a developer or designer or a consultant. And we have examples of, let's say, Upwork, right, where you have ratings and stars. Okay, what about those people? What about the recruiters who actually themselves, they're not trustworthy, and they try to mess up the rising talent who's just started, and now he gets in aggregate a very 3.5 or 3.7 stars, and now he's not anymore so sexy for the market, right? So there are a lot of instances where I think your solution might be irreplaceable once it's going to have the scale and integration with a lot of platforms. So maybe because we don't have a lot of time left, or I'll be curious to talk more about the DeFi aspect of it once it's going to be more public. I guess right now you don't want to speak about it for now.
Another opportunity for another, chance to talk with you.
Yeah. No, I would love that, because I think decentralized finance is a huge topic, and there are a lot of great technologies happening there. So I'm sure if you integrate it in this particular angle, that can be a driver for people to actually, again, unfortunately, we should say it openly, to be incentivized to even try it, because it's so hard to get the critical mass of users. And ironically, even such a brilliant idea, such a, I would say, positive idea to improve trust, people get to it in the beginning. Majority of the people still will get it, from speculative incentives. And then other people, the certain percentage will come because they love the idea and they love the people who promote it. And others will come just because they want to earn tokens. And this is also natural selection. Yeah. The question to you is probably, I want to end it up in more of a philosophical concept, because trust has a lot to it, with a philosophical angle. So what is trust to you, and how do you envision a meaning of life through the prism of trustworthy society?
Well, in our white paper, we have a sort of a technical definition of trust. It's kind of dry, so I'm not sure if I should, say it here. But it does make sense, but maybe I'll take the precious time that we have left to talk about another aspect of trust. The reason that I'm so drawn to this project, and those on our team who are working on it are drawn to it as well, is that we believe in better lives for people, especially the ones who don't necessarily have access to, economic opportunities, like both of us and others we know are so fortunate to have. And so it's a democratizing force. So if we can level up, the trust and make trust more transparent, in digital form, I believe that that's going to help, people around the world. And that's one of the reasons why we, do it as well. And then the other thing, which, I think we've done a lot of thought of throughout this project, is really this whole idea of, the information that we're getting on the internet. It doesn't seem like a related idea at the beginning, but, ever since we've been around on this project, there's been so much talk about fake news and misinformation. And it's really become kind of a pandemic of its own, online. Not to talk about COVID and so forth, but this idea of getting at what is the real information again, so that we can carry on and make better decisions about our lives and so forth. It is also rooted in this idea of trust, and so we believe that's going to be really important, as well. So we hope to basically, do some things in this world that really matter to people. One is to, give them access to more opportunities, and then second, in terms of their own, education and consuming information, which is so easily shared these days, to make them, more informed, people, hopefully, which will lead them to make better decisions for themselves.
Yeah, and what is your personal meaning of life, if I may ask you?
My personal meaning of life, or
yes.
Well, my personal view is to be here because I'm creating value. I'm meant to create value for others, and always looking for new ways to to do that. So work is never done, and so we hope to create even more value for people out there.
Yeah, and I think you do create a lot of value. This is like one of the great examples of value economy, and building trust, I think, is one of the most, like, I would say, positive and important ideas, that you can ever imagine. And the fact that you're implementing it practically, and there you have tens of thousands of users, I think that's a proof of concept that it is possible, and I'm sure it's going to grow bigger. I'm sure it's just going to take time, this inflection point where people are going to feel like, okay, this is where we actually can build the reputation, and we don't have to be scared that that fake accounts, fake news, or any other, like, web, as paraphrasing the song, like, this information is a weapon of mass destruction. So this is really, really important task, and I implore people to go to your website and to take a look, to register, to download the white paper, just in case, hoptoken.org, and I'm going to put it into the description. I would love to have another interview, obviously, Eric, because this is not enough for.
Hopefully, we'll get to a good update, in terms of the progress that we've made. We're, definitely taking concrete steps. I know it's a grand vision, but it's important to take concrete steps, as to try to achieve this. So we're definitely well on our way. So we could definitely see the kind of the momentum is starting to come behind us, and help us move things forward. It'll be very exciting, even for me, to just see how this unfolds.
So what's the next big date that we can expect?
Oh, I don't know. We've got so many things that we want to do. But honestly, I think we've been quite excited about DeFi and doing something there. So we've been working quite hard, and fleshing that out and getting that delivered into the market in the next few months. So
Q1 can 2021?
Maybe first half of 2021. These things are rather complex when they involve currencies and other people's money.
Just to intrigue people a little bit, so that they will expect, some of the announcements. Okay. The last question I will ask you, and I promise this will be the last, in terms of the book that you would advise. I'm just curious, especially we're talking about trust, maybe something along these lines.
A book.
A book, yeah. Something that, besides it, not necessarily blockchain oriented, maybe something that people will actually reveal the importance of trust.
Well, that's a really deep question. I don't know of many good books on the topic, but Rachel Botsman has been one of my heroes in this journey, because she talks so much about trust. She has a lot of videos. I think she's written some things as well online, and I think it's fabulous concepts, and was really an inspiration to us. I also really like all the talks about Internet of Value, because I very much believe this is very much along the lines of creating an Internet of Value, and so that's been kind of on our reading list a lot, in terms of how we create value from these technologies rather than mere sort of information that exists out there right now.
Okay. So yeah, I guess you're talking about also Who Can You Trust by Rachel Botsman. This is a pretty good book, so I'm going to share this one, and yeah, Internet of Value. So no, that's, I think that will be enough for just a good read for people to have the beginning, understanding of the depth you're going into. And yeah, again, your white paper, I think, also a good primer for understanding both the philosophical and the technological concepts. So I really thank you for your time, Eric. And I hope that, in the next year, we're going to see each other again with some bigger announcements.
I certainly hope so, Constantine. It's been a great pleasure. And, let's talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.